23rd, 2016. We'll get started with our regular agenda, which is to start out with the stand-up. So first up is Anna.
Yeah, nothing unusual, like mostly issues in PR review, and got a couple of own PRs. Bradley isn't here, so
Maybe Chalker is the first one who's here.
yeah, I think so.
Nothing significant except for investigating the buffer issue. Next one is Colin.
Nothing too exciting, just reviewing issues and pull requests. Next is Evan.
Yeah, not much for me. I have been looking at this. There's a leak in HTTP. There's a stale timeout listener that I've been trying to dig into and make sure that the proposed fix isn't going to wreak any havoc. So next is Jeremiah.
I did the 7.2.0 release yesterday. I think that's the only thing notable.
I think then James is next.
Primarily still heads down on the HTTP2 implementation, doing some other PR triage, but very, very light on that. I don't have the list in front of me, so I'm not sure who's next.
Josh would be next.
Yeah, so I was helping the Chakra team get Node Chakra Core Nightlies. So we have those now for Linux and Windows. Been testing libraries that work with the V8 inspector and Node Inspect, which is one we're thinking of bringing in as a CLI debugger, and Chrome Remote Interface, which is a little more abstract. Reviewing Matthew Loring's tracing controller PR and working with Jason Ginchero over here on possible JS API for it, and what it could be used for in the future, logging and performance tracing. Prep for Node Interactive. We have the Diag WG meeting at this summit, which I kind of have thought about. Maybe, yeah. And then just issue review, keeping up with stuff. Next is Michael Dawson.
I added the SMTP server to our Jenkins config so we can now get emails on build failures, and started an issue to discuss how we get people looped into that who are interested. Started to rough in the benchmarking job to add Octane, since we did have a regression that might have helped us spot earlier. Ongoing work with the stable ABI proof of concept. Moderated the benchmarking work group meeting. I'm preparing for my benchmarking work group presentation at Node Interactive. Missed reviews, comments, and lands, and just reading through the issues to keep up to date, including that the one on the tracing PR. Next is looking who's here. Sorry, going down the list. Anybody else spots it before I do? Shout it out.
I think it's me.
Yeah, I think that's you. Stack 3 pre-van.
Yeah. This week I've been doing mostly code reviews and stuff, and I've been talking to people to contribute more to open source. That's all.
Okay, I think Rich, you're next.
Yes, just onboarded, and I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but I think it's Italo Casas, and been addressing some tests here and there. Particularly excited to land the test inspector flaky test fix, which will probably land early this afternoon, and then that should turn our regular CI from yellow to green, so that's exciting. PR issues, reviews, the usual stuff, and preparing for Code and Learn in Austin. If you are going to be in Austin and have not signed up to be a mentor or attend Code and Learn, you should. Okay, that's it.
do we have to do anything more than comment in the issue that we're going to be there?
As far as I know, no. I think that's all you have to do if you want to be a mentor.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on in the agenda, we will go through the previous meeting review. We talked about issue 29, so the new CTC meeting schedule proposal. I think in the end we've agreed to stick with our 2 meeting time rotation until the end of the year and then revisit then. We talked about the documentation work group 32, which is really just a call to see if there was anybody else who who would be wanting to stand up and sort of reinvigorate that. We talked about revert buffer runtime deprecation of calling buffer without new 9529, which we'll talk about again today, so I think we'll leave that for now. We talked about fix leak of write wrap and TLS wrap. I think that was number 9626. That was going to go back to GitHub with Trevor proposing a way forward. We talked about 9467, don't call into VM from async wrap. And actually, maybe I got those confused in terms of that's the one that Trevor was going to take, proposed a way forward. Does anybody else remember 9626? What the conclusion was that on that last week?
Which issue is that?
9626, fix leak of TLS wrap and write wrap.
It was it's a security issue, and we wanted to get it into the backports really fast, and so basically there's a little discussion whether to get it into V7 and then backport or otherwise, and Miles said that they had reached a conclusion that it's fine, we'll get it in V7 and then backport it in the regular process.
Right, and then that'll go out in the regular December 6th releases, right? I think, okay. So that was the last meeting, so let's move on to the agenda for this week. We only have one issue, which is 9529, the buffer runtime deprecation of calling buffer without new. There has been a lot of discussion going on in that issue. We still need more discussion to come to a conclusion. Is there anybody who wants to start off the discussion or bring us up to date on where we should start that discussion today?
So maybe one thing, like most of the discussion that has been happening for the past week was focused on the general way forward and not specifically on reverting the deprecation that we introduced in V7.
Right. So you're
So,
thinking maybe we should try and come to a conclusion on that?
Yeah, we definitely won't get to a conclusion on the other general issue today. But like what I guess I would like to ask is, like, does anybody think that the deprecation warning in V7 as it is right now serves its purpose?
I would have to say no at this point.
In fact, it probably doesn't.
Right.
I mean, from the security point of view, it doesn't serve its purpose. It had another purpose, and that's why it got landed earlier than the whole buffer arc deprecation. That purpose was to allow class inheritance on buffer. And it's probably working to obtain that purpose, but not for the security, because from the security point of view, everyone just replaces buffer with new buffer, and that does not change anything. They don't even look into the code.
I want to be clear about something. That deprecation was never meant in a security way. It was meant simply to allow us a clear path to the future where you could always extend buffer via class without worrying about it.
It's probably working as bringing the ecosystem forward to that point, but not to the security issue.
Right, and I think though there's the discussion around that has also been, we're not closed necessarily on whether we should go and create a new API instead of deprecating and changing the first one. So I think maybe the question is, like, does anybody object to us reverting that for now while we figure out what we do want to do in this whole area.
No objection here.
I have a question about that. I don't directly object to reverting that pull request into reversion that change, but would we think that it was a good change when we get to the full buffer arg deprecation? I mean, when new buffer from an argument and buffer from an argument will be both deprecated for security reasons. I hope that it will happen in the next major release. If we get to that point, would we think that this was a good change? I mean, the undeprecated it or not?
I think that's, we've been having a big discussion on that, and we haven't come to consensus on the right answer yet. So, I don't think we have that answer in terms of, is redeprecating it in 8 the right answer or not? That we'll have to continue that discussion. But it sounds like a good idea to separate that from, do we just revert this, and then, discuss, figure out what we're doing, and then plan for the next major version to do what we all agree we should do.
I don't really think that if we revert this, necessarily deprecating everything in version 8 is a good idea or viable.
So this would put an obstacle to deprecate things in version 8. I mean, reverting this would put an obstacle.
It basically means we're going to say, we put this in. There's definitely some negative impact to having done it. We're not in agreement that it's the right thing to do. So let's go back to where we were, and then complete the conversation as to what we should do. And if in 8 we say we should deprecate it, we would do that. If the answer is something different, we would do that something different.
Yeah, and whatever we do, we're gonna leave subclassability and stuff like that out of the way, because, yeah.
I think that's.
Why are we leaving those out of the way?
Yeah, I'd say it's part of.
We still need to maintain those, right? Like, I'm not. Someone had a suggestion on one of the threads on how to do that, even if you deprecate the constructor, I think, but
yeah,
like, those are still important.
Yeah, so just in case, to warm it up, so we would have to remove calling buffer without new for allowing subclassability via the current API if you want to do that. And I think it has become pretty obvious that we will never be able to remove buffer without new. So we just don't do that. And if you want to allow subclassability, we're going to add a new API. I know there has been some resistance to that, but it wouldn't be a huge API. The old API would just be a wrapper around the other one, and you could explain the difference between those in 1 or 2 sentences. So it wouldn't be like a huge new thing that we introduce.
So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm kind of. I guess I'm wondering if the CTC decision-making process, at least, is not effective in dealing with this issue. And I wonder if what we might want to consider doing is delegating this to a small subset of the CTC, and possibly some people who aren't on the CTC, but certainly a small subset of the CTC that care passionately about, or not passionately, but care a lot about this and have informed opinions, and will show up to meetings to talk about it and sort this out, because this is the 3rd time it's been on the agenda, and we don't even have enough people here to like even just like take a vote if we want to go that route or something.
Right. I am thinking though that we should try and close. Like I didn't hear anybody say they're strongly objecting to reverting the deprecation. So I think if that's the case, it would be good to just close on that and then take the larger discussion, which is, you're right, we're having trouble closing in on that. You know, take that to a different forum to have that. You know, I guess if GitHub plus whatever else makes sense to make progress on that front.
I mean, I'm pretty sure to make progress here, either way, you're gonna have like some of that pain. So, I don't see really, I don't really see why we would revert it at this stage.
Yeah, so Michael, I definitely hear objections to reverting it. I hear Jeremiah's doesn't sound like he's on board, and I get the impression that Nikita is on board conditionally. That like we can revert it, but only if we plan on. But probably doesn't want to revert it if we're not going to reinstate it in version 8. Am I misunderstanding Nikita?
No, that is correct.
Okay, so yeah, that's
there's definitely objections to reverting it. There's definitely people here who don't want it reverted.
Okay. Then yeah, I guess we've got to throw the whole issue into figure out how to close on that.
Yeah, I mean either someone can move for a vote, or we can continue talking here, or we can delegate it to a smaller group. I mean that's basically the options, I think. And I don't know what the right answer is, but I do know that like dragging this out is probably not good for Node.
No, yeah. I mean, I think we should use the time we have today to discuss it, but then I don't know. Yeah, what would be the process for delegating to enough of a group that when it comes back, we'll, you know, end up with not continuing the discussion, right?
So, like, just as I don't know, like the latest stats show that V7 is already used more than like 0.10. And like, I'm not sure, maybe someone's more up to like these discussion threads or where like issues are being reported on modules. But it seemed like there was like an initial heat of stuff and then there wasn't like as much. Maybe that's just my impression. I'm not 100% sure, but I think like, I don't know, what damage there is like already been done in the time that like this has been out, which is about a month now, I think, just over a month. So like anyone that had tests failing on this has probably fixed that. And the rest of the things is just like, okay, someone complains a bit about deprecation notices, but that might be in for like at least a year, and those will probably eventually slowly get fixed. Like I don't really see how like reverting it is really that like beneficial at this point.
I think that I can calculate some new stats on how the buffer without new usage has changed in the past few months, because I checked the buffer without new usage before we landed that, but I hadn't checked it recently. And before we revert that, if we decide to revert, we probably want to check how much adoption the change got.
So does anyone on the yes revert side want to add anything at this point?
Well, maybe it's just me, but like, just to have said it, like, since we did the deprecation warning, like, whenever I run a Node CLI comment, it usually displays one of those, and I personally have just gotten used to it and started to ignore it, which is like not the point of it. And I mean, I know that pretty well, that is not the point, but I guess that is just what happens when you just have warnings that always pop up.
Right. I had the thought that, you know, I just was wondering if the deprecation warnings are hitting the people that we want them to hit. So, I mean, we want them to hit the developers who could fix them. And having everybody who runs them see them isn't necessarily beneficial. Now, I know when you get to security things, it's maybe a bit different, but for general deprecations, it almost seems to me that you only want developers to see them, not end users. And if there's some way that you can, and we probably already have flags, but I'm really thinking the default should be.
But
The
we can.
developers are going to see them as if users see them, and then users report them. Like a lot of these modules just kind of like are there and are the maintainers are done with them. They've written them and they've moved on. I think that our threshold should be this. Not, and this is my opinion only, but we should not deprecate this unless and until we have a convincing and airtight explanation of how this deprecation fixes or enhances security for the end user. And right now, the way we've deprecated it with just you can just add new and it'll keep working. It doesn't do that. And I think if we're going to if we're not doing it for security, we don't have a strong story for all of this user pain. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
Yes, something that I also wanted to mention for the security deprecation that I want to see the next measure. It should probably print a better error message. I mean, not an error, a better warning to the console, like something is deprecated for security reasons. See this link for explanation and explain next steps what to do, like upgrade your packages, upgrade your dependencies, check whether buffer arc is used, use safe buffer if you want, backwards compatibility with 0.12 and 4 point something, not 4 point latest 4 point something that was before the new was the language, or just use the new buffer API. And the explanation why it was deprecated. You probably need a link explaining that, and that link should be included to the deprecation warning itself.
I think that's true. Back to the other thing about, in this case, if we wouldn't deprecate it unless it was security related, does that mean we're never going to, add deprecation messages?
Because I don't think so, right?
Particular case.
Right, but it's basically then, anytime we add a deprecation message, we're going to end up with the complaints that we're getting. It's just a message, but whatever message we add, we're going to have the same complaint, right?
Not all warnings are equal. Some warnings are going to, like buffer is going to just causes far more warnings than if we deprecated, a single method inside of, pick an obscure API.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm still thinking that we're for security. So this one actually I think makes sense for somehow the end user to be able to be aware because it's a security issue and they want to be able to upgrade. The general deprecations, though, you want to hit the developer who could fix them. And if they don't fix them, eventually if their module stops working because, the thing goes away, that's fine. But the users don't need to be in the loop of pushing that necessarily. So I'm just, it's here, it's almost like we need a mechanism to say, we want to let you know that there's a security issue and you should upgrade. And if that's actually separate from a deprecation warning, that may make it clear that we're only doing this because of security, and security is important, right?
I think this is a discussion that needs to happen, but I think that this is vastly more scope than the issue that's on the agenda that we really, really need to somehow get to a resolution on soon.
Yeah, so maybe just one particular point to just reverting the deprecation as we have it. So I think Chocker mentioned that in one of the email threads. But anyway, it's also something I heard watching discussions like in the ecosystem. And right now we are basically more pushing people towards using new buffer instead of just buffer than towards the actual new APIs. At least that's my impression. Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I kind of look at this from like maybe, I don't know, a different direction. Like I kind of think that like we're kind of in the business of like allowing people to do more stuff with Node. So like if there's something that could be like really useful to be extended using like how JavaScript is going to be working now in the future pretty much, we should move towards that even if there's like some temporary pain around it. Does that like make sense? I think that's like mostly where I'm coming from on this. I mean, I think ideally we would probably, I mean, in their message regard, tell people to use like the new APIs. I mean, those aren't really available until V4, I think. But like download counts suggest that the majority of the ecosystem is on V4 and V6, even if there's people who are holding out on old versions. There was one other thing I wanted to say too, but I don't remember what it was, so. Like
Yeah,
maybe that isn't like the right point of view to take. I'm not sure.
it's certainly not the universal point. I mean, I think that's the, there's people on the other side that are, no, we should change, allow for change, but do it in a way that doesn't cause the pain.
Yeah, okay, so that was the other thing. Like, I'm not sure how you'll do that though, right? So it's pretty hard to like message these things. I mean, the entire reason we kind of have it like warn whenever is that so users can then go back to the libraries and report them and kind of get the visibility that's needed for library authors to upgrade, even if there's like some pain through that like entire chain. Like I'm not really sure if there's actually like a better way of doing it on like the distributed scale that say npm modules like have, right? Like I'd love to hear if there's like better suggestions, but I think like I mean
But I think if
that's
it's
maybe
around,
not the most comfortable way of doing it, but like it does work in the end for the most part.
being able to do new things though, right? You can create a new API and new people can use that new API without, that doesn't stop the people from doing new things. It doesn't force people who don't want to change to use the new thing, but it doesn't prevent adoption of the, new technology.
I feel like if we're going to make a change at that scale, it's our responsibility to go into the ecosystem and see what kind of effect that has and help the ecosystem fix that. I don't think it's like the end user's responsibility.
Yeah, that's why I was, I don't want to open up the whole other discussion, but that was a bit of my point of it's, forcing something that inconveniences and confuses users when it's not them that we want to target may not be helpful.
Okay. And we also have to consider, whose responsibility is it to take on the pain, right? If we are going to be introducing something new because we think that's the direction Node should be going, we should be biasing our effort towards, if it's more work for us but doesn't require work for the users, then that's okay. If it requires more work for the users, then that's probably not something we want to do.
Yeah, I'm on that side. Is the unless there's something we can really justify, minimizing the pain on the end user versus us doing a little bit more work is certainly the right way to go.
Yeah, and along those lines, I mean, if like say with Buffer, if we do want to do a version of Buffer that is based on ES6 classes and better subclassing and just better support, having a Buffer 2, it sucks from a maintenance point of view. It may suck from a pure API design point of view, but it would allow us to move forward without touching existing buffering, making existing users move.
I think that'll end up like causing more pain on both sides.
Well, we need to do the investigation and not just guess it. that might cause more pain. We need to actually see if it
And it's not the feedback, the module, certainly the module owners, that's not their feedback, right?
Right, their feedback is that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, and then people
buffer
say that we
concept.
shouldn't have the new URL object. Some of the same people, actually.
Oh yeah, it's the same
And
people.
some people
But
complain that we shouldn't have touched the FS module, and we should always have left it frozen for Graceful FS to work on it.
And the people that are saying that we shouldn't have the URL module, they're saying it for different reasons. Right. Introducing the new URL module did not break anybody.
Yeah, that's the exact same point, though. Like, introducing a new buffer module doesn't break anyone. Like, are we going to hear like the same amount of complaints from like the same people? Probably.
But
I mean, that's what history shows, anyway.
It's different complaints. Complaints saying, "Hey, you shouldn't add that new thing," is a lot different than, "Hey, you made us go do a bunch of work to change our code unnecessarily." Those are two different types of complaints.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really disagree on that. Anyways. So is the consensus then to revert it? Because like we should like do that for the next release then.
What next release?
The next 7.x release, which will be due next week, I think, because there's going to be a fix for a crash from async wrap. So someone will need to do a release next week, I think.
We also need to get that HTTP stale timeout into V7 so we can get it backported because it's causing memory leaks.
Right.
Just a random thought as we've been talking here. Would it make sense to put the deprecation warnings by default behind a flag? And then, or is that the purpose? I mean, then at least.
I think James has a PR open for like showing deprecation warnings for stuff that is deprecated in the docs, right?
Right. Yeah. So the idea there, that one would be off by default. The hard deprecation, the current one would still be on, which is what we have now with the buffer. So in theory, if we landed this, the PR, I think I need to update it, but if we landed the PR that I have out there, then we could put this deprecation as where it only show up if the flag is turned on. The feedback that I've received, though, from a number of users is that they would never actually use this flag. So
which flag?
They would, the new one, the flag that would turn on the doc-only deprecations.
Right. But that was that was along the thinking that I was going down. Is that a bad thing if end users don't turn it on? If developers,
the module developers.
Yeah,
I've gotten feedback from module developers that they would never use it.
Yeah, that's a
problem.
problem.
They only need to turn it on like once or twice. Like whenever they, well, if they don't maintain it, then that's another thing. But if they check, once a month or something, then it's a reasonable thing to say, okay, check once with this flags.
Right. The whole intent would be it's something you could turn on in CI, right? It's something that as you're doing development, you could use it periodically. You wouldn't have to use it all the time. So I'm not quite sure though if it's going to be useful if folks aren't going to be using it. So
bingo.
It's still an open question.
I mean, it comes down to we can provide people information, but we can't. I mean, I guess we can try and force them to reflect that, but is that our job to say no? It has to be so in your face that you can't ignore it. Versus, well, we'll give you the information if you should be, and also message that you should be, module owners, you should be turning this on in your CI so that you see this, and that when we actually remove things, you don't fall over and you're surprised.
Okay, we're running out of time, and we were so tantalizingly close. Jeremiah was like just inches away from getting what felt like maybe was resolution on this issue. So I don't know. Do you want to try again, Jeremiah?
I mean, I don't think that's my job on my side of the conversation, but I mean, like, I don't know. If everyone else really feels like doing it that way, I feel like if we're not doing this by next week, like we should just drop it because it's going to be like, I don't know, a month and 2 weeks almost.
Yeah.
I will get some stats by the next week on
Stats on what?
on the how much the buffer without new usage was changed.
Might be useful.
So
I think we need that before
if
next
it's
week. Then.
if usage has gone way down, does that mean we don't revert or we do revert?
Probably we don't revert if the usage has gone down.
I see, but if usage hasn't changed, it's a sign that it's not effective and it's just annoying people and we need to do something else.
That only takes into account public packages, though. Like, that doesn't include the hundreds of thousands of private packages that people have.
Yes, but that is some kind of statistics.
I feel like private packages are like maybe less of a problem because most of the people that are using them are going to be like more in direct contact with the development of them. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I think that is probably less painful than like modules maintained by other people downstream. Am I incorrect?
Also, the usage counts of private packages and public packages are significantly different, and this is why we should care about public packages first.
I'm sorry, Nikita, what did you say?
I said that the usage counts of private packages and public packages are significantly different. This is why we should care about public packages first, because that's what most of the users use.
I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that there's a lot of users that use private packages.
Yes, there are a lot of users that use private packages. There are a lot of private packages, but each private package has significantly doesn't have many users in general. This is why the total number of packages multiplied by the users is significantly higher in the public part. At least I estimate it that way.
I mean, but like, what if you have a package that you use in all of your services that does essentially the same thing and it uses buffer? Then I feel like the usage is still like a total pain. I don't know. That's my opinion. I'm for reverting it, but
yeah, I wonder if even if we don't have a consensus, would we have consensus that we should schedule a vote? You know, like either next week or at some fixed time. It's like, okay, we've been talking about this. If it goes on, I think we're all of the feeling that if it goes on too long, that's not a good thing.
Couldn't we just put it in a GitHub issue and ask everyone on CTC to vote? And that's what.
Well, that effectively would be calling for a vote, right? Like we could call for a vote.
Not delaying it until next week. It means being able to get it done sooner than that. Although we do want to wait on Chalker's stats, right?
Well, that was what I was going. Like we could decide to do it now. We could decide to wait till those stats come in or some other fixed time. But let's fix the time and do it. People think that's a good idea?
Yeah, so Chaka, how long? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Still not convinced if this would get into reversion. I mean, into hard duplication buffer in the next major release or not. I mean, if this would be an obstacle to that or not.
I think the vote would be on just reverting without any guarantees of what we're going to do in the next release.
I don't think this has any impact on that when that happens specifically. is my feeling.
I think we're going to have a lot larger of a problem if we hard deprecate in V8, in version 8.
About that, we could hard deprecate only buffer from a string, for example, because buffer from a number. The only reason why we should deprecate buffer from a number is if we want to zero fill it. But if we don't want to zero fill it, there is almost no reason to deprecate buffer from a number. Also for the buffer from an array, which is also used in the ecosystem, it is a lot less likely to be a security issue, because when someone uses a buffer from an array, it is in most cases it is guaranteed to be an array, but the one that causes most problems is the buffer from a string constructor, when no one checks if the user has passed in a string or something else. So we could deprecate only buffer from a string, for example. We probably need a separate discussion on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're down to 5 minutes. So do we have an objections to calling for a vote and setting that vote for? I don't, it's in my mind it would either be, let's put it in the GitHub issue now and get a vote, or say that we're going to wait for those stats to come up within some number of days and then do that. Is objections to that, or
could we say before the next release? Because that's what matters, right?
I mean, before the next 7.2 release.
Yeah, sure.
When is that?
When is that going to happen?
Probably next week. At what time, I'm not sure, because I think a lot of us are going to be in Node.js Austin. So some of us might be even collaborating on doing a release there. I'm not really sure. But I suspect sometime, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere around there, we'll probably be doing one to get the HTTP fixed, the async wrap fix, and maybe something else in.
Could we delay that until the next CTC meeting to vote there?
That would basically miss that release, right?
That will almost certainly miss that release.
I almost want to call for a vote. I think that this is something that we need to handle.
I think, don't the bylaws allow anybody to call for a vote? So if Evan is
Anyone on the CTC, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that just evaluating public packages is going to change. It doesn't, regardless of the outcome there, it's not going to change my opinion, because I'm dealing with a lot of private packages with this. So let's call for a vote.
Okay, we don't have enough people here to come to a resolution, but we can start tallying votes and then open an issue if people feel that the data won't change their opinion either way.
I'll create an issue.
Okay, great.
I'll put it into the issue that we've been using to track it.
Yeah, like on the PR, right? Not the general discussion issue.
Yeah, I guess I'll put it there.
Where are you putting it? Like, wouldn't it be better to open a CTC issue for this?
Part of that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it'll make it visible. We can then go vote there.
Yeah, and add the CTC agenda label so that if we don't get enough votes, it's on the agenda next time. Although that'll be too late, but whatever. Just I'm done talking.
It should get CTC review, right? As well.
Just give it the agenda label, and we'll see what happens with it. But you should just ping everyone to try and get everyone to vote on it.
Yes.
I'd also add in saying, we're trying to get this decision made before the next release. I think that's a good comment to have there too.
Yeah. I just want to note that while we are consensus seeking, we usually avoid votes. I think this has gone on so long that we're kind of almost overdue for voting on this.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too. So
Agreed.
okay, so I think we've come to that action. That's good. We're at the end of the regular meeting. Are there any other business that people want to bring up before we close? Okay, if not, we'll thank you everybody for your attendance today, and we'll
Q&A. Any Q&A?
Public Q&A and.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Is there anything on the public Q&A?
There is a couple of things. Yes. So if anyone has questions, put them in the YouTube chat. We'll be on for a minute still while we answer some of these. Someone asks, where was it? What do you think about the new arrival yarn? I mean, I think it's good to have some competition in most spaces. I mean, it's good even for Node to have competition against other programming platforms. So
yeah, Yarn is fantastic. It's going to take a little while to mature, but it is showing a ton of promise, and the performance is absolutely phenomenal. So it's a good thing.
Not sure.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as James and Fishrock. It's good to have alternatives. Will take a little while though, I think, for it to mature and build on the initial momentum that it has.
I will note at least that it's a little bit impressive that it's as compatible as it is, because there's a lot of little minor nuances in the way that over the time the NPM ecosystem has gotten used to installing things. So previous solutions, even if they were faster, typically had lots of edge cases. So that's at least impressive. Someone mentions on the buffer stuff that I guess probably me. You are incorrect. Private repos in big companies you can't easily change, and they're not like public packages. Okay, that's good feedback. I think we'll probably keep that in mind. I think that's kind of come across a little bit in our discussion too, but maybe not as much as it should have.
Any other questions?
I don't think so. Can someone read off the meeting times quickly?
Sure. So upcoming meetings, TSC meeting is tomorrow at I'm sorry.
Actually, no, there's no TSC meeting tomorrow.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Why don't you read the meetings?
Okay. Yeah, I updated them a little earlier. So next CTC is next week. This one would be 2000 UTC, so 12 p.m. Pacific. Next TSC is Thursday, although I think that I need to look. That may be canceled because of the Node Interactive stuff, but it's scheduled for next Thursday, 2000. Yeah, nothing else. Diagnostics WG is at the collab.